Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Racha, Quadash double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, wherever you may be. To you I say, Shalom, Yeshua, Shalom. All right, it's your brother Micah Allah back with another week to preach the gospel to the lost. What am I talking about? What am I talking about? So like, thinking I was at camp for a second. What am I talking about? I guess it still fits to say. Oh man, I meant to say we're back in the book of Genesis, chapter 49. All right. Verse 1, man. Let's read up verse 1 and 2. I was tripping. Bear with me. So it says that Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. All right. The word days in the Hebrew is yawam. Okay. I'm dealing with a specific period of time, right? Like a 24-hour day. Okay. And when you go into the word last, all right, the word is achariyaf, all right? Achariyaf. And it says here, latter time, prophetic for future time. And mind you, all right, when it says latter time, all right, it's talking about in the future, obviously, straightforward. But the point I'm getting to is this wasn't these things that are said to his sons in this chapter are actually referring to the descendants of those sons. His actual sons didn't go through these things that are written, which are pretty much prophecies, all right? Which is why it says prophecy for future time. But these things that are said to his sons are referring to all those that came, born of his sons. And that wasn't even like directly after. It was, generations down the road, all right? These things that we experienced in previous lives, but of course we have no recollection of the past. All right, so this wasn't exactly, these things were said to his sons, but what was said is referring to those that come from each of his sons. All right. So, yep. So it says, gather yourselves together that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Okay. And then it says, gather yourselves together and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel, your father. Okay. And so today we're moving on to, verse 19. Yep. And the tribe of Gad. All right, Gad. All right. So right here, Gad. And it says, seventh son of Jacob by Zilpah, Leah's handmaid and full brother of Asher. All right. So pretty much the tribe of Gad, the Gadites, are today's so-called Native Americans, which, if you know, um, even then still broken up to a lot of different names, all right, populating, Northern America, which is why they call North American Indian, obviously, Northern America, Canada, okay. It's possible maybe they were even in Alaska, but most definitely North America and Canada, all right. Coming over here after the Assyrian captivity, all right. So, yeah, like it says here, seventh son of Jacob by Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, and full brother of Asher. All right, because contrary to popular belief, especially today's society in the West, okay, it is okay for men to have multiple women. All right, that is your right as a man. All right, we're talking about as Israelites. All right, any man really from any nation, but all nations deal how they deal. We really could care less. But as an Israelite man, all right, you're able to have multiple women. All right, it's just these modern day women today think that a man belongs to them, and it's the other way around. You belong to a man. All right, to one man. Okay. But yeah, so Jacob had the two sisters. I believe they were sisters, if I'm correct. And because he was actually tricked. But the two sisters, and then the two sisters had handmaids, and so he ended up sleeping with the handmaids as well. All right, because of the sisters wanting to have more children and so on and so forth. So just a little side note there, a little snap of fact. And the word or the name Gad actually means troop. All right. Yeah, troop. I mean, example of that, Har Magadwan. Har meaning mountain. Uh, Ma, depending on how you use it, could mean of or from. All right. In this sense, in that word, it would be of. Um, God, which means truth. Okay. And if I'm correct, the one makes it all plural. All right. So troops. All right. Har Ma Gadwan, mountain of troops. All right. Gad means troop. All right. So yeah, speaking on troop, um, let's grab this Genesis chapter 30. Right, Lord, will you be edified? All right, Genesis chapter 30, and I want, here it is, verse 9. So it says, when Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. So Leah couldn't have children. So she was like, I can't have children, but I still want children. So I'm going to give my handmaid to my husband so I can have another child. All right. Yeah, of course, the child was born to a handmaid, but the handmaid being her servant, okay, she's going to take the child uh, to herself. I think they call that being a surrogate mother, if I'm correct. That's the term, a surrogate mother. But either way, however the case may be, all right. She wanted her handmaid to sleep with Jacob so she can have another child. All right. Now her handmaid, even though it is the handmaid's child, but because the handmaid pretty much belongs to her, she took the child for herself, so she made it her child. All right. Um, which that was the ancient way. All right, of doing things. Today people would view that differently, but that's not the case. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah her maid and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, a troop cometh. All right, a troop cometh. Now keep this in mind as we go back to Genesis 49. All right, so it says, a troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. All right. So there you go. It says, this is what she named him when he was born. And Leah said, a troop cometh. And she called his name Gad. Once again, the name Gad meaning what? Troop. Okay. So let's go back to Genesis 49 and 19. So it says Gad. Now understanding, the tribe of Gad, what the name means and all that. All right. And all right. Just looking around. He's always nosy, man. Anyways, so it says Gad, all right, a troop shall overcome. All right, we just read, all right, a troop coming. All right, so she called his name Gad. Gad in the Hebrew meaning troop. Okay, so it says a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. So when it says a troop shall overcome him, it's actually being talking about talking about being defeated by the U.S. cavalry. And actually, as a matter of fact, let's see if we can pull up some history. Otherwise, this would be short lesson 2. Let's just type in North American Indians versus U.S. cavalry. There you go, right there. American Indian Wars. And like I said before, I think I said it, but yeah, mind you, the North American Indians were Israelites that went into the Assyrian captivity. All right, because after Solomon's reign, North and South were split. So-called Negroes, West Indians, and Haitians were that southern kingdom of Judah, and then you have the northern tribes which make up most of the northern kingdom. But Gad, the so-called North American Indians, being a part of those tribes, right? So it says the United States cavalry and Native Americans fought in many conflicts known as the American Indian Wars, right from the 16th century to the 20th century. These conflicts took place across the country from New Mexico to South Dakota and involved a variety of weapons and tactics from both sides. So it says Native American weapons, Plains Indians often used edged weapons like knives and tomahawks, as well as spears, clubs, and bows and arrows. They might also carve notches into their clubs to record heroic deeds. Yeah, they were also they were scalp you too. Maybe we'll look that up. Matter of fact, let me look it up now because I might forget it. Actually, I'll wait. a little will we remember. But yeah, they do something called scalping, right? So here's some examples of conflicts between the U.S. cavalry and Native American. Okay, so it says Battle of Little Bighorn on June 25th to 26th, 1876. The regiment of the U.S. cavalry, along with Crow and Arikara scouts, fought against the Lakota Sioux, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes. The battle took place in Montana along the Little Bighorn River and is often referred to as Custer's Last Stand. The Indians were led by Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull, and they defeated the 7th Cavalry, killing Colonel George Armstrong Custer. Uh, uh, this battle is considered to symbolize the clash between the two cultures, and it marked the beginning of the end of the Indian Wars. All right, Battle of Bear Valley on January 9th. 1918, the 10th Cavalry Regiment of Buffalo Soldiers fought a small skirmish with the group of Yaquis in Bear Valley, Arizona. The Yaquis were using the area as a passage across the border with Mexico, and the soldiers captured 9 of them after killing their commander. This battle is considered the last official battle of the American Indian Wars. On December 29, 1870, the 7th Cavalry arrived at Wounded Knee Creek, South Dakota, which you notice that keeps popping up a lot. I think it even popped up when we spoke about Reuben. Where Bigfoot's Lakota band, actually I believe it was Oklahoma. But either way, the name keeps popping up. Anyways, so it says where Bigfoot's Lakota band were camped. The soldiers used Hotchkiss guns to kill more than 153 Lakota men, women, and children, as well as 25 U.S. soldiers. Okay, where's that? Okay, it is. American Indian Wars. Pretty much probably want to see if it gives the same thing. You can see what it says though. The American Indian Wars, also known as the American Frontier Wars and the Indian Wars, was a conflict initially fought by European colonial empires, the United States, and briefly the Confederate States of America and Republic of Texas, going back to the earlier, the settlement days of the like the 13 colonies, and how they start to kind of spread more. So it says, in Republic of Texas against various American Indian tribes in North America, as we said before, tribe of Gad and tribe of Reuben were broke up into many smaller tribes, and really it's no different than the other Israelite families, right? You have a particular name. Oh, hold on, I lost my earbud. You have a particular name of like a tribe or whatever, and then you have the different families that come in that tribe, right? They're all, Benjamites or something, but they come from, a different family of the Benjamites that are all broken down, in a sort of sub-tribal sense. But you see that more heavily with the so-called Native Americans than anyone else, but it's really no different than the other tribes either. So it says, these conflicts occurred from the time of the earliest colonial settlements in the 17th century to the end of the 19th century. The various wars resulted from a wide variety of factors, the most common being the desire of settlers and governments for Indian tribes' lands. Yep, and that's exactly what Esau did, okay? He came to take the land, all right? Even when we talked about Reuben, you had this demon, who just wanted to steal all the gold and stuff like that and got caught red-handed, okay? And, battles happened. So it says the European powers and their colonies enlisted allied Indian tribes to help, and that was headed by Hernan Cortez. Indian tribes to help them conduct warfare against each other's colonial settlements. After the American Revolution, many conflicts were local to specific states or regions and frequently involved disputes over land use. Some entailed cycles of violent reprisal. Right? So this is 1899 Crom lithograph of U.S. cavalrymen pursuing American Indians. So, there's so much you can read on all of this stuff here. Indigenous North Americans, right? American Indians include the tribes Cherokee, Creek, Muskogee, Lakota, Miami, Shawnee, Seminole. We talked about the Seminoles already, right? Wampanoag, Northwestern Confederacy, and Tecumseh's Confederacy. Comanche, Alaska natives. Yeah, there you go. See Alaska, right? We mentioned Alaska, right? Um, and then look, check this out. Check this out. Let me read the other side real quick. Colonists, viceroyalty, and Europeans make it sound so special, right? British Empire, Kingdom of England, Kingdom of Great Britain, British America, United Kingdom, British North America, Dominion of Canada, First French Empire, Kingdom of France, New France, right? The Spanish Empire, you had Kingdom of Spain, Council of the Indies, Viceroyalty of New Spain, all right? New Spain going to the area of, you know, what was it, like Mexico and all that, Mesoamerican area there. They call it New Spain, right? Dutch Empire, you had New Netherland, okay? Going to show you that everything has moved from east to west, which is why you have things like New York, all right? Had you never researched it, that you wouldn't know that there was a York back east. Now they call it New York, New Hampshire, all right? New this, new that, all right? Because there was an old name for these things back east, okay? Russia, you have Russian America, United States Union, Mexico, Republic of Texas, Confederate States, Indigenous North Americans. So obviously they were also on the opposite side. You have, but we mentioned that when we talked about Reuben. Because the Aztec pretty much was the apex, right? And so you have other tribes because they were all Israelites, family in a sense, but because of the curses, man, we were just under the curses, all right, and falling out from one another. So you had other indigenous tribes, but some joined up with Esau to bring down the Aztecs, being that the Aztecs were pretty much the big bad empire. All right, so I mean, it is what it is, right? The curses, right? Not sure we're gonna move. Oh yeah. We definitely want to get into that. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we could transition over because we're just talking about the history right now, anyways. And jump down from that paragraph to right here, where it says the Indian Removal Act. So you probably should be familiar with. We'll probably come back up. Let's go back and punch up this demon right here, and punch up and Andrew Jackson. All right, get this devil on the screen. So Andrew Jackson, 7th U.S. president, right? Shows you how far back that goes. Okay, you got what 50 something now. Because I really don't keep up with the numbers. I could care less. All right, if it was the 87th president right now, I could care less. Okay, but yeah. So going back to this devil Andrew Jackson, right? And it's taking us right back to the wiki. So let's go over here. So it says Andrew Jackson was the 7th president of the United States from 1829 to 1837. All right, so what's about 29, 39, so about 8 years before his presidency, he rose to fame as a general in the U.S. Army and served in both houses of the U.S. Congress. His political philosophy became the basis for the Democratic Party. Jackson's legacy is controversial. He has been praised as an advocate for working Americans and preserving the Union states and criticized for his racist policies, particularly towards Native Americans. That's right, because he was a devil, man. Okay, this is where you get your so-called Thanksgiving from. The hell with a Thanksgiving. All right, let's talk about killing of my brothers and sisters. Why the hell would I want to do that? Okay, so we read into, all right, Esau didn't like that. Walking by with his little puppy dog. He let out a heavy sigh. We heard about what I was reading about. We thought about the praises, man. Fuck, the hell with this man, okay? You know what I wanted to say there, all right? See, one thing about Esau, man, he hate truth, man. Trying to, I'm trying to bar my tongue, man. Okay, maybe forget what I was looking for. Let's go down here, slide down a little, man. But devils, man, they really hate truth, man. All right, but that's that pride, man. Okay, it's okay to tell a lie, but what about truth, man? Okay, because we talked about the first, well, that was the Reubenites, right? Part of the North American Indians, All right, tribe of Reuben, tribe of Gad. Separate tribes, but still so-called North American Indians, right? So both Israelite tribes. I'm trying to see what we want to read here, because some of this is actually the same history from dealing with the Seminoles down in Florida, okay? Because you see what they did with them. As a matter of fact, let's do this, because we got Jackson. Let's go back to the Indian Removal Act, because that's the key point there, okay? Indian, because that's the same history, dealing with uh, um, the Reubenites, right? As we just mentioned, what they did to them in the Floridas, right? You try to they first kind of moved them central Florida, and then eventually the same devil Andrew Jackson wanted to move them all the way out. Okay, and so they were basically coming and taking lands that didn't belong to them. Okay, the Indian Removal Act of 1830, signed into law by President Andrew Jackson on May 28, 1830, authorized the president to negotiate with Native American tribes to exchange their homelands east of the Mississippi River for unsettled land west of the river. Okay, see, authorized the president to negotiate with Native American tribes to exchange their homelands east of the Mississippi River for unsettled land west of the Mississippi River. So wanted to push them west. Okay, and a lot of them that actually did go west. You have a lot of them that have casinos and stuff like that. Um, but it always comes from the history, being pushed out. Okay. Um, Let's read some more. It says the act also provided incentives for tribes to sign removal treaties, including financial and material assistance and protection from the U.S. government. Right? Because what happened was a lot of them weren't okay. Like, okay, we've seen this Oklahoma you're talking about. We've seen this land, this, that you're talking about. And you know what? We ain't biting. Okay? We ain't with it. All right? We ain't trying to move. Okay? But you had some of those native tribes, the heads of it anyways, being simple-minded and trustworthy, okay, and trusting in Esau, all right. And so what they did, they took the ones that actually agreed and signed, all right, took the ones that actually agreed and signed, and then said, see, because they signed, all right, this is across the board. So even though these guys weren't with it over there, it's across the board, meaning everybody is under this. Everybody has to move, right? So that's the devil for you, man. Okay, moving the goalposts. All right. So it says the act also provided incentives for tribes to sign removal treaties, including financial and material assistance and protection from the U.S. government. The act also allowed the president to use the U.S. Army to force tribes to relocate and to protect them from other tribes or people in their new location. All right. Well, if we weren't moved out in the first place, okay, then you wouldn't need that now, right? The act resulted in the relocation of nearly 50,000 Native Americans to Indian Territory, which is now eastern Oklahoma, we just talked about, right? Some tribes accepted the act peacefully, there you go, see, but others resisted. For example, the Cherokees were forcibly removed in 1838 and 1839 on a march that became known as the Trail of Tears, okay? It says, during which approximately 4,000 Cherokees died. The act is considered by some to be a genocidal action that was part of an attempt by the U.S. government to seize Native American land and gold. Okay, if I'm correct, I believe we read the same thing dealing with Reuben. Okay, but once again, the Indian Removal Act was across the board because, mind you, they were in North America as well as Canada and probably, in some parts of Alaska, but definitely North America and Canada. They are the indigenous people. But then you have a devil today, all right, talking about sending out ICE to not to deploy, but to deport, all right, people because they're not supposed to. Well, who the hell you think you are? You people are not indigenous to these lands. You're colonizers that came over here, lied, raped, stole, killed, pillaged. You wanted gold. You wanted the crops and the land and the resources. If that's what you did, man, all right, you show you Esau for who he is, a devil, man. Okay, to him was given a great sword that he should take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. Because even though they came against the tribes, these niggas were born against themselves, man. Okay, and you can't see a devil when you see him, right? Made me forget about a point I was trying to make. Um, Speaking on the Trail of Tears. Matter of fact, real quick. Um, yeah, let's get a couple scriptures real quick. We'll come back and we'll hit the back on that topic again, the Trail of Tears. Let me go to Deuteronomy. All right, 19. Deuteronomy 19 and chapter 14. It says, laws of landmark and testimony, right? Thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark, which they of old time have set in thine inheritance, which thou shalt inherit in the land of Yahweh thy power, giveth thee to possess it. Okay? Now, though it says in the land that we go to possess, it's talking about, the portion of the promised land that we did live on, but it's still universal overall, okay? That you're not supposed to remove your labor's landmark. And you, more than anybody on this planet, all right? You see Esau, all right? He's going everywhere, okay? For treasures, for land and resources and things of that nature. He's invaded some of everybody, all right? He's the main he's the main person you could point to when it goes to talking about removing someone's landmark, right? He's the number one culprit. Okay. Let's get this. Stand in Deuteronomy. Let's get chapter 27. All right. 17. Cursed be he that removeth his neighbor's landmark, and all the people shall say, Amen. Now, of course, this goes into our laws, but once again, they use it universally, talking about Esau. All right. And he is cursed. All right. Even says it in Isaiah 34, all right, upon the Idumea, the people of my curse to judgment. Okay, he is a cursed demon. Okay, his pale, nasty skin. All right, that red mess that he got on his bones. All right, some of them got the blonde hair, which that was a curse. Okay, because not all of them have blonde hair, contrary to popular belief. Obviously not. Okay, that was that Hitler stuff though, right? Blue eyes and blonde hair, red skin. All right, whatever. Which Esau is a true red skin. Okay, because they put that term, all right, on the so-called Native American Indians, Redskins, all right, because that's even a sports team, the Redskins. And then you got a reddish brown so-called Indian with a feather on his head, man. Hey, man, I was thinking about the vengeance of the tribes, right? Um, so let's go back over here and see if we can pick up on the Indian Removal Act. Some more there. See if we can find the wiki. PBS might not give us what we want. And even wiki goes off sometimes too, but this is actually gonna see the wiki. Let's get this here in the National Geographic, see what it says. So on May 28th, 1830, okay, because that's what around the time period was, Indian Removal Act of the 1830s, right? The United States Congress passed the Indian Removal Act, marking the government's clear-cut push, clear-cut push to remove Native American tribes from east of the Mississippi River, all right, to the west of it, as we just read. The Indian Removal Act opened land that indigenous peoples had previously called home to white settlement and expansion of slavery, further codifying injustices at the federal level that had long been underway. By the 1800s, the U.S. federal government and several state governments had already frequently pushed indigenous tribes farther and farther west. Violence, threats, deception, and legal agreements, often treaties, were tactics used to transfer indigenous held land to white people. Though there was significant Native American resistance, many of these earlier efforts at ethnic cleansing, all right, a term we've heard before, right? Ethnic cleansing, were successful. These anti-indigenous policies, coupled with spread of diseases transmitted by settlers, has severely decreased the population of indigenous peoples in North America. Yeah, because they gave them the smallpox, right? They didn't care, men, women, children, elderly, babies, whatever, give them the smallpox. I believe we spoke about that one time in one of those Assassin's Creed games. The one I think it's like a part 3, where the main character was supposed to be a so-called Native American, right, Indian, and there's a scene in there that you're supposed to cleanse all the blankets that were given to the so-called natives that had smallpox in it, man. So it goes to show you, in order to distort history, you actually got to know what the history is, man. So for them to put it actually in a video game, it's crazy, man. These anti-indigenous policies, coupled with the spread of diseases transmitted by settlers, has severely decreased the population of indigenous peoples in North America. However, there was still a substantial indigenous presence east of the Mississippi River. Tribes living in what is now the U.S. Southeast at the time included the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, which we read that before, Muskegee, but which is the Creek, and Seminole, which we talked about. The Seminole, right? Seminole was pushed into Central Florida, then pushed all the way out of Florida. Okay. Um, so it says by the 1800s, these nations were known collectively as the five civilized tribes because they had adopted aspects of white, which is a lie, man. Because they were already civilized. They were very advanced, man. Okay. The native, native tribes, uh, those Israelite tribes that came over here to the Americas, South Central and Northern America was super, they were well put together. All right. When you talk about their building structures and everything, but that's the lie that was told, that they were just some kind of barbarians and not smart, and they were very advanced civilizations, right? But because we weren't falling behind the so-called white man, oh, we weren't, we weren't smart, we weren't this, and that's a lie, man. All right. Otherwise, you wouldn't have sought us. So which we know didn't sought because they were Israelites, but you get the point there. So we see that's a clear-cut lie. Five civilized tribes because they had adopted aspects of white settler culture, right? Pressured by the U.S. government, many copied the ways settlers dressed, their educational system, their practice of Christianity, right? Which those two are deadly, man. The educational system and the practice of their version of Christianity, right? That was deadly to our people, man. Okay, even to this very day, their use of because in the educational system, all right, you only taught history by the way of those that are in power. Those that are in power are able to write the history books, which is why they own the history books and the miseducational school systems and prepare the curriculum that you learn in that miseducational school system, man. Not us, right? So it says there's practice of Christianity, their use of plantation agriculture, and their enslavement of people of African descent, which they weren't Africans, all right? They're not African descent, but what that is referring to is the Southern Kingdom, all right, where they went back across seas after seeing all this, lush land and vegetation and crops and things of that nature. And these lazy bastards, right? Because they call us lazy and this and that. Why? Of course we're gonna be lazy because we don't want to work for you devils, all right? We working for ourselves. We had our way of life put together, okay? But going back to that enmity between us and the serpent seed, right? All right, things happen because of prophecy, man. But anyways, the point being, when they saw all these things, their lazy asses didn't want to go out there and work. So they went and got the Southern Kingdom and also enslaved them, brought them from, that's where you get the whole slave trades, right? Because they were already over here, bothering the Northern Kingdom Israelites, you see? So-called Native Americans, so-called Mexicans, and so on and so forth. These conquistadors were already over here bothering the Northern Kingdom Israelites. Then they went back over there, all right, showing you ain't no freaking Africans, man. Stop calling yourself Africans, man. It even tells you in the Zondervan's Compact Bible Dictionary, Ham is the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, because those filthy little Africans, all right, come from the line of Ham. The so-called Negroes come from the line of Shem, all right? Clean cut. It does it. All right, how you doing? All right? That's the straightforward facts, man. Okay? Them ain't our people, man. They played part in the slave trade. So they went back east, picked up the Southern Kingdom, took them into the slave trade, and brought them west, joining them together with the Northern Kingdom tribes, man. Remember, we went through that history when we talked about the Seminoles, all right? Those that were fleeing from Georgia, all right? They went to hide, south, right? With the Seminoles. They call them the Black Seminoles, right? Well, those were Israelites, all right? So, of the so-called Negroes, which are not Africans, man. Tribe of Judah. So all these nations knew exactly who they took into captivity, man. Okay? They knew exactly what the Psalms 83rd chapter say, all right? That we were oppressed together with one consent, to that the name of Israel shall be no more in remembrance. See? All right, and Salaki, if it sounds like I'm getting a little worked up, but I mean, when you read about the history, man, all right, it does get you a little worked up, man, because it reminds you of where you are, all right, and why you need a Lord to come, all right, deliver you, man, from these curses and from, this filthy land, man. Okay, originally enslavement by Native Americans was not the same as that practice by white settlers. Being enslaved was not an inherited or permanent status. The enslaved could be adopted into the family. This changed as the cultures and beliefs of these tribes became virtually identical to the United States. Still, the civilized practices of the five tribes did not stop the white settlers' growing demands for their lands. Oh yeah, here's a history that I was going to get into. All right, well it's here right now, so let's go and talk about it. Two historic events: the Louisiana Purchase, which we already talked about. If I'm correct, we talked about that dealing with the Reubenites. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 and the War of 1812 sped this land grab. The Louisiana Purchase brought the U.S. government the exclusive right to purchase or forcibly take lands from various indigenous governments, lacking, meaning the so-called native tribes, right? Lacking enough funds to pay veterans of the War of 1812, the U.S. government offered them land, all right, in what are now the states of Illinois, Michigan, and Arkansas, lands occupied by indigenous people. See? How much more is so much here? You probably have to read this on your own time. Um, yeah, we'll probably stop right there at that last thing you read. Okay, make sure we're still ticking. Um, I was reading this here in the center. Okay, which I could read that too, but I mean, there's so much here. All right, really, we came over here talking about the Indian Removal Act, right? Um, man, uh, let's see if we can type in one more thing, maybe. Let's see if we can type in how Native Americans help white settlers survive. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so we do get something here. Native Americans helped white settlers survive in America in many ways, including providing food. Native Americans provided settlers with food, such as deer, corn, and fowl. They also taught the pilgrims how to grow crops, which helped them survive a harsh winter. You know, the pilgrims were so-called white people, the red men. Okay, so the reason why I'm reading this is, to transition into real quick, um, that because we mentioned Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving, really, okay? Because this was Israelites being Israelites, man. Generous, caring, heartwarming people. All right, chill. All right, but very advanced, very smart, intelligent people helping these white settlers, and they turned around and raped their women, all right, children, and kill men, and so on and so forth, man. Backstabbers, right? Sharing knowledge. When you go into all those treaties that they were making with the so-called Native Americans, they broke every last one of those treaties, man. Every last one of them, right? They changed the goal. They moved the goalposts from every last one of those treaties, man. Okay. So it says Native Americans provided settlers with food such as deer, corn, and fowl. They also taught the pilgrims how to grow crops, which helped them survive a harsh winter. Native sharing knowledge. Native Americans helped settlers adapt to the environment by sharing their knowledge of the land and habitat. Yeah, because our people lived off the land. All right. They even understood, going to show you the Israelites, but the land sabbath, they would actually, migrate. All right, pretty much they would move like pilgrims, man. Okay, um, moving from place to place, which we also talked about dealing with Rudu. Okay, but yeah, they were if I'm correct, we did. But yeah, they would move, from place to place, trying to find land for their cattle and water and stuff like that, and moving, and only killing animals when it was necessary, and not just, you know, overly unrighteously killing animals. That's what Esau did. All right, speaking about the buffalo, wiping out the buffalo. Okay, but because of course the native tribes would kill buffalo, but there was a reason, and they would only kill when needed. They wouldn't just go. Basically, they wouldn't go kill for sport. All right. Now they've made a whole sport out of hunting. Goes to show you, it goes all the way back to their forefather, man, Esau. Excuse me, not Esau, but Abel. I'm sorry, not Abel, but Cain. Cain. All right, who was a hunter. Okay, all the way back. Okay, you see their lineage; it's never changed, man. And then added on with which his name in the Hebrew is Kwayan, which means weapon. So I was about to say, added on that blessing, where they were blessed with the sword. Like, come on, man. Well, so now today you have hunting as a sport. All right, killing deer. All right, and then they put their head up on a mantle and stuff. All right, and stuff like that. They kill animals for sport. Okay, and not out of necessity. That's what the natives did. They kill for food and necessity because being very intelligent people, like they will skin an animal, all right, and take its pelt, okay, um and pretty much what they would do is like they will make like particular clothing out of it, all right, and the clothing would also be universal because a lot of those animals, their fur and whatever, all right, will be somewhat waterproof, all right. So not only are they wearing, the animal skin, as a garment and stuff like that, because they made it into clothes, but then also it has certain protection from the elements, all right. One of those things, being it's basically our people were very, very advanced, contrary to popular belief, man. What Esau's going to tell you is always going to be a lie, man. Okay, because he's the beast man. He's the cave dweller, right? He's the thief of everything. Okay, a fugitive and a vagabond, right? It also says trading. Native Americans and settlers traded materials and supplies such as skins, hides, and beads. Native Americans also traded fresh water and fruit with the Europeans. Okay. Um, Matter of fact, let's punch in this real quick because I know we're just kind of going, but it's all a little back history dealing with Gad. What was I about to type in? Matter of fact, they probably won't even give it to us. Let's punch this in. Origins of Thanksgiving, right? Because really, when you go to the Bible, all right, the word Thanksgiving is there. Um, but when you break it down, it really goes into thanking the Lord, thanking Yahweh. Okay. It has nothing to do with Turkey Day, man. Contrary to popular belief. Thanksgiving has roots in many celebrations that took place in North America centuries ago, including harvest festivals, days of Thanksgiving, and other celebrations. All right, harvest festivals. In 1621, Puritan colonists in Plymouth, right? Those are Edomites. Massachusetts celebrated their first successful harvest with a 3-day feast. Right, going right back to the tribes, man. Okay, helping them survive off the land, showing them what to do, and helping them out, and then being backstabbed. Right, let's read it. So it says, first successful harvest with a 3-day feast. According to legend, the Wampanoag Native Americans were invited to join, and some say they thought the pilgrims, they taught the pilgrims how to grow corn and catch fish, which we just read some of those things, right? And then so was trading with them and everything. It says the pilgrims also celebrated a second feast in 1623 to give thanks for an end to a drought. Days of Thanksgiving. The Puritans celebrated days of Thanksgiving in response to special blessings from the Most High, which that's a lie, all right? Because really, Thanksgiving goes into slaughtering of Native American tribes, man. All right, there is no happy way, all right, to talk about Thanksgiving, all right? You got no business. Well, the Israelites got no business celebrating that, all right? Because that's a slaughter of your brothers and sisters. Thanksgiving ain't got nothing to do with no happy turkey day, man. Ain't no way you can positively twist it. All right, that's what most people go off. Oh, we doing it for the kids. Well, the Lord's gonna kill you for the kids because it tells you to train up the child in the way that they should go. It didn't tell you to do the ways of the world, right? It didn't tell you to do. Even the Bible speaks against Christmas. Most don't know that, right? You know why? Because you're going to the church house, telling you lies, right? All right. It speaks about these things. You shouldn't be doing no Christmas. It's got nothing to do with the Lord. All right. Contrary to probably what the world tells you, it's got nothing to do with the Lord. Thanksgiving is about slaughtering Native Americans. Those are Israelite tribes, man. Okay. New Year's and New Year's Eve got nothing to do with the scriptures. All right. You have high holy days in the Bible, man, for you to follow, man. And these holidays, they have pagan roots, man. They got nothing to do with you Israelites, or especially no, 4th of July. Okay. 4th of July. What were you doing on 4th of July? Being slaved, you see? But what you gonna see our people do? Right where I'm at here right now at the boardwalk, all right? You're gonna see them flood right down here every 4th of July, all right? Celebrating Edomites, all right? Or Edomites from back east, all right? How you doing? All right? Getting their independence from Edomites. I'm sorry, Edomites here in the west getting their independence from Edomites back east. That's what the 4th of July is about, man. It ain't about you Israelites, man. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. You ain't got no business celebrating 4th of July, all right? Because that was a holiday celebrated concerning Edomites, man. All right. So it says, which one did I read? I think it's Days of Thanksgiving. So the Puritans celebrated days of Thanksgiving in response to special blessings from the Most High, such as the victory over the Spanish Armada in 1588 or the deliverance of Queen Anne in 1605. These celebrations were marked by Christian church services and other gatherings. Other celebrations, Spanish, 1541, Spanish explorer Francisco Vasquez de Coronado led a Thanksgiving celebration in what is now the Texas Panhandle. All right. In 1789, President George Washington designated November 26th as a day of national Thanksgiving in his first presidential proclamation. Yeah, we just talked about, remember I mentioned having that about the smallpox thing in the game. Yeah, in that particular game, George Washington was supposed to be one of the, he was supposed to be a president, the figurehead in that game. All right. It's a very interesting Assassin's Creed game. All right. I believe it's part 3. I can't remember the name of it. You can probably I don't know, because you might want to look into it. Just really look it up. Matter of fact, I'll put it up for you real quick. Creed 3. Okay, so it's just called Assassin's Creed 3. Well, yeah, this guy right here, the main character there. All right. I forgot what they called him. I think his real name's supposed to be like Ratanakan, something like that. But he's supposed to be a Native American. Okay. Connor, that's what the name that they called him, Connor. All right, and his father, all right, was supposed to be a so-called white man. So goes to show you. Now, of course, they're not going to. Now, when you talk about a quarter from the Bible, that would make him even, an Edomite. All right, because his father was supposed to have been so. But I was just mentioning what was in the game. All right, so we don't have to get into that because it's not important. But it's just because I mentioned that smallpox scene there as one of the missions. Okay, here's some more. Let me see what it says here. Because they're not exactly going into that slaughter. All right. Asking AI might even not even pull it up. We're not going to do all that. Just trying to get through it. Yeah, you see what it's going. See what it says? Most Americans are taught the same story. Where do you learn it down? In your mixed educational school system about Thanksgiving, that pilgrims sat together with Native Americans to share a meal and thank them for helping with a successful harvest. Yeah, because they showed them how to live off the land, survive, and also, as you just read, celebrating the harvest, right? Bonus points if the story you learn also includes an appearance from Squanto or a lesson in fertilizing crops with fish. But most popular retellings of the first Thanksgiving have been proven to be riddled with mistruths. While you may know that on some level, what's not often discussed is the truth about the holiday's history and the effect it has on many Native Americans. So let's see if they're going to give us what we're looking for. Because we already know the history. I'm just seeing if they're going to actually give it to us. Let's try to get through here. You probably have some vague idea that the Thanksgiving holiday is not quite the rosy picture you read about in school. But the real origins of the holiday are not clear-cut either. We'll give you the best glimpse at what we know, but note, there is a lot of information to digest about this issue and a few supposed origins of the holiday, some of them conflicting. This is the most commonly researched and reported story. Let's just get to it. So it's still saying the same thing. The Plymouth, the 3-day feast, so on and so forth. Mashed potatoes, Wampanoag mentioned. Smithsonian points out discussions. You see, so you see they're basically trying to skirt the issue, but we understand. We understand what Thanksgiving is really about. All right, slaughtering of Native Americans, man. Okay, ain't no way around it, man. Clean cut. All right, and then we talked about did we even go into? I don't even think we went into the Trail of Tears, man, because we kind of went off there on a side trail, but it's all edifying. Yeah, the Trail of Tears was the forced displacement of about 60,000 people of the 5 civilized tribes between 1830. Notice how they call it 5 civilized tribes, as if they were all barbarians, but these 5, they were okay. These lying devils, man. All right. Anyways, between 1830 in 1850, and the additional thousands of Native Americans and their black slaves within that were ethnically cleansed by the United States government. So we know when it says black slaves, it's talking about Judah, right? Or the Southern Kingdom Israelites. Um, we might just pull up the wiki. Actually, I did think we read about the Trail of Tears. Was the forced displacement of of about 60,000 people of the five civilized tribes between 1830 and 1850. The same thing we just read there. Trail of Tears Memorial at the New Echota historic site in Georgia, which honors the Cherokees who died on the Trail of Tears. Okay. So all going into that force, there you go right there. See Andrew Jackson name popped up. All right. Cause Indian Removal Act signed by President Andrew Jackson. So I was about to say it, but the words on the screen took it right out of my mouth. See? It all goes back to the little treaty or whatever, decree, whatever you want to call it, that was signed by Andrew Jackson, man. All right, the devil. All right, you see that he forcibly removed the Reubenites as well as the Gadites, man. Okay. So yeah, and motive, acquisition of Native American land east of the Mississippi River. That's the motive, man. That's why we read the scriptures we read about moving your neighbor's landmark, man. Because the motive behind his actions was to move, all right, these natives out of their land so we can take the land. Because the 13 colonies fighting against one another, north, south, all this kind of craziness. And but we're gonna oppress the Israelites in the meantime, all right? And they gotta be paid back for that, man. And get paid back double, okay? And what did the scripture say? We're going to inherit their lands, man. We're going to inherit Edom as a possession, and we're also going to inherit their lands, all right? Because Edom is going to be slaves, and after 1,000 years, they're going to be done away with, but we're still going to own their lands. We're going to actually live in their lands, okay, at some point. A lot of these different nations out here, right? Because when you look at the Promised Land from the Nile River, that's a portion of Africa there, all right? And going towards east, you go over Saudi Arabia, all those areas there, all the way over to the Euphrates, and then up, all right, stopping, up in like Lebanon and Syria, okay, covering Jordan, all of that, Mesopotamia, which is parts of Iraq, Iran, those areas there. But I don't think it goes as far as Turkey, Anatolia, right? But you get the picture, the bigger picture. If you really know, your maps, all right, in your mind, all right, you might can picture what I'm talking about, all right? All that, all right? Because the areas of Judea we lived in at some point, but we didn't really live in our whole entire promised land, man. We're going to get all of that, which includes Edom's lands, okay? Yeah, perpetrator, little target, Cherokee, Muskogee, which are the Creek, the Seminole, Chickasaw, Choctaw. Perpetrator, United States federal government, United States Army, state militias, white Americans, right? As if they're different from the first three, right? These were the white Americans, period. Okay. Displaced 60,000 indigenous Americans forced to be recorded. That's the Indian. So, I mean, pretty much you see the history is a lot of the history is the same with the Reuben and Gad, right? Because of Andrew Jackson and the removal, man. So I think we going to enough, man. Let's go back to Genesis 49. All right. Because that's very deep history there, but it's good to know, all right? Pointing out who they are. So, Genesis 49, 19, Gad, a troop shall overcome him. So, yeah, them being defeated by the U.S. cavalry and so on and so forth. We talked about the Indian Removal Act, Andrew Jackson, all the different things there, okay? But then it says, but he shall overcome at the last, okay? And let's get this. First Chronicles 5, all right, and 18. It says the sons of Reuben and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, all right, the Gadites, who we're talking about right now, and the half tribe of Manasseh, of valiant men, men able to bear buckler and sword, all right, and to shoot with bow, which Native Americans are often known with the bows, right? Okay, and we talked about a little bit with this with Reuben, all right. These were some warrior class people, man. Okay, so it says men able to bear buckler and sword and to shoot with bow, and skillful in war. All right, you see, skillful in war. Oh yeah, we never looked up. Maybe I'll look up real quick. Were 40,004,703 scored that went out to the war. Okay, let me go back real quick. Um, let's see if we can find it. Maybe it'll pop up. Just put Indians and scalping. Let's see if it comes up. Yep, scalping was a widespread practice among some Native American tribes, but not all, and its significance varied by culture. Scalping involved taking a small piece of skin from the top of a defeated enemy's head as a battle trophy. All right, just straight shaving off the top. All right, skin with the hair and all. Okay, it says it was often ritualized, which is funny because now I'm not saying it's not the same thing. I'm not even really saying it has anything to do with it, but because one of my favorite movies coming up watching was Predator, right? So yeah, the Predator, he would take the trophy, right? Which he would take the whole head though with the spinal cord, but just made me think about that. Okay, and he got the long hair with the so-called dreadlocks, which is dreadlocks and stuff like that going off, but you get it. Okay. Anyways, right? Side note, right? So it says some tribes believe that scalps embody the enemy's spirit or identity, and that the scalp lock contained the warrior's soul's connection to the spirits of the heavens. Taking an enemy's scalp was thought to give access to their soul, mental and physical faculties. Well, we know what's going on, but anyways, scalps were also taken as a display of military prowess or for ceremonial purposes. See, however, scalping was not exclusively practiced by Native Americans. White sailors also scalped indigenous people from the 17th through the 19th century, which they showed you in that movie. Um, Denzel Washington played in. I can't remember the other actors. There was a so-called Mexican guy, Indian dude, which he was in there. This big dude that played the Punisher. He was supposed to have been the one that was scalping, the Native American. He was getting paid by the U.S. government to scalp them. The guy that played in I can't remember his name either. Um, the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He played what's his name? Um, Star Lord. The dude played Star Lord. Okay, he was in the movie, but yeah, they showed you that in that movie though. Okay, um, it's a pretty good movie if you haven't seen it. I can't think of the name of it. No, not the Hateful Eight. That was a different movie. Magnificent Seven. That's the name of the movie. The Magnificent Seven. Very good movie if you haven't watched it. Pretty decent movie there. Um, Yep. So it says, and several European colonial powers paid bounties for scalps. For example, during the French and Indian War, Massachusetts Governor William Shirley offered a bounty of a 40 pound for a male Indian scalp in 1755. In Pennsylvania, Governor Robert Morris offered 130 pieces of 8 for the scalp of every male Indian enemy over the age of 12. That's crazy, right? Over the age of 12, man. So even young boys, man, young men, all right, over the age of 12 in 1756, all right. And you don't think the devil's gonna get paid back for that? Okay, we got hours for you, and we're gonna see. Let's read this again. First Chronicles 5:18. The sons of Reuben and the Gadites and have the tribe of Manasseh of valiant men, right? The word valiant means what? Strength, might, efficiency, wealth, look, army, force, see? Ability. What was their ability? Men able to bear a buckler and sword and to shoot with bow and skillful in war, right? Because we talked about before uh, 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 um, guerrilla warfare, all right? The Reubenites used that, all right? Because they knew the area, the swamps, the creeks, and all these different things, all right? Giving Esau hell, man, okay? Fighting back. Yep, skillful in war. Matter of fact, let's see what the word skillful goes into. Lamad. Learn, yeah, yep. Also, exercise to learn to be trained in war. We're 44,703 score. So 760. 44,760 that went out to the war. Okay. So let's go back. Right. As a matter of fact, I believe that was it. That was it for Gad, right? Yeah, Gad troops. So that was the other verse. So let me get this and we'll start to wind it down. Let's go to Deuteronomy 33. Right? Because we already mentioned this, but let's get the scripture here. Deuteronomy 33:20. And of Gad he said, blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion and teareth the arm with the crown of the head. Now it says, Blessed is he that enlarges Gad. So when it goes into enlarges, as a matter of fact, let's just get the word real quick. All right. The word is Rahab. So on one, so it says to be or grow wide, be or grow large, to be widened, be enlarged, look broad or roomy pasture, which is very important because what it's talking about here is how they live, the North American Indians, so called, live in, case in point, no pun intended, but North America as well as Canada and possibly territories in Alaska, and that's a huge territory. Okay, you think about how big the United States is, then how big Canada is, and you had the so-called Native American Indians over all this territory, man. But because of prophecy, things went the way that they went. So in largest Gad, all right, so it went from whatever, back east, then coming over here to the Americas, and then, you're seeing just how huge of a territory that the so-called Native Americans, occupy, right? So yeah, so make large to enlarge. So there you go. And it says, blessed is he that enlarges Gad, all right? It says he dwelleth as a lion, he teareth the arm with the crown of the head. Okay. So now when it says he teareth the arm, that's going actually into their a ritual that they used to do. See if we can pull it up. It's called a blood brother ritual. Okay. Yeah, right here it says the blood brother ritual is a blood ritual that involves two or more people, usually men, intermingling their blood to create an alliance. All right. So they would cut, the arm, forearm, or whatever. All right, and then, you know, like do like a handshake type deal or whatever, and their blood would, touch, and the arm would touch, and so on and so forth. And that's what, being a blood brother was about, right? So it says the alliance formed by the ritual often requires members to support love and be loyal to each other. Okay, so really actually joining their blood to become blood brothers. Right, that's what that was about. Right. Check this out. The ritual can take many forms, including Scythians. All right. Participants will let their blood drip into a cup, mix it with wine, and drink it. They were only allowed to have three blood brothers at a time. All right. Scythians, correct, going back to being, portions of those that were Israelites, Hungarian, Asian cultures, the North Americans right there. Participants would cut themselves and then touch their wounds together to exchange blood. Like I said, right, cutting the arm and doing like the brotherly handshake, all right, where they would grab each other's forearm and shake, but then at the same time, with the touch where both arms were cut, and they would become blood brothers, all right, because their blood had mingled together now with one another. They became blood brother. The ritual can also involve participants swearing an oath to treat each other as siblings. The alliance formed by the ritual can be used to bind together hostile groups, form alliances for war, or in peace agreements. There you go. All right. So we don't have to even read any more on that. So we go back. All right, and it says, and then it says, he says, and he teareth the arm with the crown of the head, and the crown of the head is actually going into the headdress that they wear. All right. Let's see, what is the name of the American headdress? See if we can get something here. Okay, so this is called a war bonnet, supposedly. Native American headdresses are a significant cultural symbol and can have many different styles and names, depending on the tribe, region, and purpose. One of the most well-known headdresses is the war bonnet, also known as a feathered war bonnet, which is traditionally worn by male leaders of the American Plains Indians nations. War bonnets are often made with golden eagle tail feathers, decorated with beading and ermine skins, and are sacred to the Great Plains Indians, including Sioux and Cheyenne. Yeah, and you wouldn't just like get one of these headdresses, right? You actually have to prove yourself worthy, all right, and so on and so forth, to be actually not only able to make it, but also wear it, all right? So when you see a guy like this right here, you see all those feathers, and you know how, that means he went through it, all right? He earned, all right, the right to, which is probably a chief, but he earned the right to wear that headdress. You can just take a feather and just start to do whatever, and get some more feathers or whatever. No, they they're young men, growing up to be, older men, they would earn, all right, the right to do that, all right. So it wasn't just a given, all right. It was a cultural thing. They were originally worn into battle, but are now primarily used for ceremonial occasions and religious gatherings. Eagle feathers were only given to individuals to acknowledge or commemorate a significant. There you go, right there. A significant accomplishment. I could have just kept reading. I didn't know if it was going to be in there, so it's okay. But we talked about it, such as a display of bravery. You see, because they would have to complete certain tasks, man. Right, prove themselves worthy. Okay, and warriors often only attain a few in their lifetime. Yep, you see, so just like I said, you see a guy like that. Oh, he definitely earned his spot. Okay, so it says yep. War bonnets held great value, sometimes equivalent to several horses, and were often blessed in ceremonial dances. And if you understand the importance of horses, that goes to show you how, the gravity of that, right? Several horses, okay? Other types of headdresses include horn headdresses worn by Native Americans on the western Great Plains. These headdresses are made by creating a cap of buffalo hide and then adding horn. And we talked about it earlier, right? Taking, the different animal skins and utilizing them, right? Not just killing for sport, okay? They will use them for certain things, all right? So it says these headdresses are made by creating a cap of buffalo hide and then adding horns for decoration. Only warriors of a certain stature were allowed to wear these horn caps. There you go. Same thing we just mentioned, man. Only warriors of certain, because they had to prove themselves. They couldn't just go and start to pluck up feathers, all right, and start to build a headdress or whatever the case may be. No, not in the Native American culture, all right? You have to prove yourself worthy to be able to wear this headdress, all right? You have to prove that, you were able to receive this and you were able to do that and so on and so forth. It wasn't just I'm old enough now so I can do it, right? It wasn't a given, right? You have to prove it, okay? That's why it says only a few achieve this, all right? It says fox and coyote headdresses. It says these headdresses are also popular and well known. So it doesn't say anything about that, right? We're just going into that Native American culture there, all right? So that's pretty much it. There's nothing else we can talk about. We pretty much covered everything. So, Lord will you edify to this. I'm going to say shalom.